JT Sports, and I'm joined with a special guest today, my guy, NFL broadcaster. We're going to be talking about who we feel will win NFL MVP this upcoming NFL season in 2021. Before I get into it, make sure that if you guys haven't already, that you guys like and subscribe to the channel because I upload NFL videos and NFL content daily. And also make sure to check out my guy, NFL Broadcaster. You can find him on Instagram and Twitter at NFL Broadcaster. Also subscribe to his YouTube channel. All his social media links and his channel will be down in the comment section and description down below. So how's it going, NFL Broadcaster?
Hey, JT, thanks for having me. Things are going great. I'm excited to talk about this next MVP prediction. I appreciate the shout out. Yeah, I'm just ready. I love NFL. Love to chat about it.
So one thing about NFL broadcast that I really like about him is that he has his own source. He breaks news, and he's pretty on the money. Now, of course, not everything's 100% accurate. That's with any source. But I think he's more accurate than the majority of the guys in the mainstream media and the majority of the guys I see who break news and rumors on Twitter. So, NFL broadcaster, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I just got a notification, a message from my source over there with NFL rumors. But yeah, so I just kind of like hit them up. There's an NFL rumors account on Twitter. They're pretty popular right now. If you viewers haven't come across them, if you just search NFL rumors on Twitter, you're bound to run across their profile. They're called NFL rumors for a reason. They just, they get NFL rumors and then they just post them. And so I messaged them like, how do you guys do this? Like, what is your process? And just tell me more about it because it's super interesting. And I learned that being friendly and just trying to ask questions and everything, they just started like giving me some info. They said I seemed like a trustworthy guy. And so I've had some conversations with players and with this team over there at NFL Rumors. So yeah, what they do is like they make sure that they use keywords like expected, rumors, because you can't 100% guarantee information. You can't be like, well, I predict the future. And that is the important thing, is that like you have to say, this is expected to happen, but I cannot guarantee it. I've learned that.
So do you have a source that will tell you who's going to win NFL MVP this upcoming year? Or is that, TBD, to be decided?
That's totally like unpredictable. I mean, you can place bets on people like if Aaron Rodgers stays in Green Bay, I have Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. If Josh Allen plays the way that he did last season, I have Josh Allen up there. So it just depends, man, on how they perform.
So there's a lot of people who have Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and second-year Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert, and rightfully so because he had the best rookie season in NFL history from a statistical standpoint, broke all kinds of records. But a guy who I feel is kind of being a little bit overlooked, and I would consider him an MVP dark horse, is Matthew Stafford. Now, we know Matthew Stafford at the start of the offseason got traded from Detroit to the LA Rams. And I was telling everybody, I said, listen, Matthew Stafford is a top 10 quarterback. Just the fact that he got held back by Detroit being incompetent in the front office, having a bad coaching staff, not really a great team around him. He goes to the Rams. He has a great defense. He has a top 12 offensive line. He's going to have a great group of wide receivers, one of the best head coaches and offensive minds in the game in Sean McVay. Like everything that Matthew Stafford ever dreamed of, he has at his disposal with the Rams. And I think he has a better chance of winning NFL MVP than anybody else other than Patrick Mahomes, because what Kansas City did this offseason with that offensive line. This team looks like a war machine out there.
For sure. I mean, like, you could tell from the Super Bowl game, the offensive line was an issue for Patrick Mahomes. So what they went out there and not only fixed it, but got depth at it, that's what I think a lot of teams need to focus on, is like they do whatever they need to do for that quarterback. And I feel like that's what the Bucks do with Tom Brady. They let him have more influence than anybody in that locker room, even probably the coach. So what did he do? He took all the pay cuts and said, "You resign, you resign, you resign." And they're like, "Okay, why should I argue with Tom Brady?" And then he, Matthew Stafford though, he has all the pieces in place to win a MVP. It just depends on, I wouldn't say his health, but his performance. His health really isn't an issue because he usually plays through like any injury. He won't tell you if he's injured. He's
I had a half broken back a couple years ago.
Yeah, he played with literally a fractured back, which he'll probably regret in the future. But I mean, he's a tough guy. He's one of those OG quarterbacks. I love Matthew Stafford. I think he's got arm talent like crazy. I think he was making those sidearm throws, no-look passes before even Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. And I think Aaron Rodgers even said that on a podcast.
Yeah, on Pat McAfee.
He said there's one. Yeah, as a Pat McAfee show, he goes, there's one guy who's been doing that longer than anybody. He goes, he wears number 9 and plays in Detroit. And now that he's actually got a great team around him, just defensively, offensively, everything's in place for Matthew Stafford. It's just the synergy and him synchronizing with a new team, a new playbook, new head coach. If he can get all of that just, smoothed out, he's got a good chance.
And I think with him being in LA, the Rams getting way more national media, way more national televised games than, what you see in Detroit there. A lot of people are going to look at Matthew Stafford this year. They're going to be like, wow, who was the quarterback with the Detroit Lions, and they couldn't win with him. A lot of people really don't know how good Matthew Stafford is. And it's really sad because, there are a bunch of good players in this league who never get the recognition they deserve because of the teams that they play on. So you look at Matthew Stafford going to that loaded Rams team, I definitely think he has the best chance out of anybody else to win MVP this year. But if there was a non-quarterback who you had to pick and bet money on could win NFL MVP, who would it be? Because Derrick Henry, there were a lot of Derrick Henry stands out there who made that discussion. Yep. You had Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook actually was in that discussion for a good amount of the season until, Minnesota still wasn't having all that much success. So he kind of fell out of it. But what's a non-quarterback that you could see winning the award?
So last year for me, it would have been Derrick Henry, just because his production was unreal. I'm not the biggest Derrick Henry fan, but you can't deny the numbers when they're there. But if I was going to predict a non-QB MVP for 2021, just given the track record, I'm going to have to go with Derrick Henry or running back Christian McCaffrey if he can come back fully healthy and play the entire season with no limitations, which is kind of that'd be hard for him to do. I just feel like he's going to be one of those running backs who's kind of frequently injured. But if he can come back full season with the same amount of production that he was getting from a few years ago, easily could be an MVP.
I definitely can see it, especially Dalvin Cook, because Minnesota, they got rid of Riley Reeve, who was one of their starting tackles, and he kind of was holding back the offense. And that's weird because you don't normally say, off the lineman's holding back the offense. But in terms of what Minnesota wanted to do, running the football wise with that, that zone run, they like to run a lot. He kind of held him back. So you get rid of him and you bring in Christian Derrick, rookie out of Virginia Tech. That dude is an absolute monster, especially when it comes to those kind of runs. So I think Dalvin Cook could probably end up running for 2,000 yards this year because we know that their former offensive coordinator, Gary Kubiak, I think he stepped down. So now you got his son pretty much taking over. So I think they're probably going to be running the same thing. And we know Minnesota can run the ball with the best of them. So I probably would go with Dalvin Cook as long as he can stay healthy. But I want to be mad at people saying Derrick Henry as well. My thing is that if there was a year for Derrick Henry to win NFL MVP, I felt like it would have been last year, because you don't normally see a running back have a 2,000-yard season consistently. You feel me? So
Oh yeah.
I definitely feel like this could be Dalvin Cook's year.
Yeah, I agree. Dalvin Cook, honestly, so underrated in my opinion. Like, he's well known, but he's still underrated. Watching the physicality he has when he runs, the way he breaks tackles, the way he can tear up a defense. I'm scared when the Packers play him. I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, so like every time we go against Dalvin Cook, I'm so scared. Like, he's
Yeah.
just a monster.
And I
And
definitely think he is underrated, because when you think about some of the best halfbacks in the NFL, when everybody's healthy, you say Chris McCaffrey, you say Alvin Kamara, you say Zeke, when he's healthy. You also say
right.
Saquon. I don't really feel like a lot of people give Dalvin Cook, the recognition he rightfully deserves, because you definitely can make the argument that he's the best back in football.
I would say so. I mean, he's definitely a top tier RB1. I would consider him an elite running back in the NFL. He's only 25 years old. He'll turn 26 August 10th. Let me see his stats from previous years. So, yeah, his only issue would be completing a season. He played and started in 14 games in 2019. He averaged 4.5 yards per carry. Almost 82 yards a game, which is absolutely nuts. I mean, it's hard to even average, yards like that. But in 2019, he had, 1,135 yards. In 2020, he still only appeared in 14 games, but he rushed for 1,557 yards with 16 rushing touchdowns, and he averaged 111 yards per game. Do you know how ridiculous that is? As a running back
Absolutely.
to average over 100 yards per game rushing, that's crazy. And the reason I would have him over Derrick Henry gets a lot of volume. And Dalvin Cook averaged right at 5 yards per carry last season on only 312 rushes. Now, let me look up Derrick Henry real quick. Last season, he had 378 rushes, 2,027 yards. But he did average 5.4 yards per carry, which is actually really good. Usually I see his down below that, like in the fours. I always thought his average yards per rush was a lot lower than that, but I guess it wasn't. But he rushed for 17 touchdowns and over 2,000 yards, but he also got, 50 something more carries than Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, they ran
So
him
I
like
don't
a
know.
truck, man.
They did. I mean, that's a lot of touches, almost 400 rushes. Wow.
That's like
I didn't realize.
unbelievable.
I thought, see, my thing with Derrick Henry is that, like, he'll rush the ball like 3 times in a row. And I feel like a lot of his runs, or most of his runs, are little, like 2 to 3 yard carries. And I'm like, that really wasn't impressive. But then, like 15 carries into a game, he'll rip off a 70-yard run, which helps his average, right?
Mhm.
And then you see a bunch of 2 to 3, 4, 5 yard rushes, and then it's another 60-yard run, stuff like that. That's why
And
I don't feel like, if he didn't get that volume, he would not be that great of a running back, in my opinion.
I feel like that's what makes Derrick Henry great. And that's the reason why Leonard Fournette didn't really live up to the hype that, he was supposed to have when he was drafted out of LSU, because he's supposed to be that kind of physical bulldozing runner that tires out defenders. I think what makes Derrick Henry so great is the fact that, okay, he may have 2-3 yard carries, but you keep running the ball and you keep having to tackle that behemoth of a man. By the time you get to late in the third quarter, fourth quarter of games, you're basically don't want to tackle this guy. I think Baltimore can, agree with that pretty wholeheartedly, because
Yeah.
you see this big monster truck running down the sideline late in the fourth quarter for a couple of minutes late. You're tired because you already spent the first 3 quarters tackling him, bringing this guy on the ground. Now you're tired, you're exhausted. I think that's what makes Derrick Henry so good, man. It's like he just wears down the defense.
He does, and I give all credit to Derrick Henry, especially when it comes to like his stamina, durability. I mean, he is 6'3" and 247 pounds. The guy is huge. I mean, he is huge, and he just turned 27 in January. So he'll head into the 2021 season at age 27. He's still in his prime. Um, God, but he is massive, and that's what like is so good about him though, is that he can. I mean, you can't blame them for handing him off the ball 25, 30 times a game because he can take it.
Yeah.
And he does wear down a defense. So I guess you're right with that. Like, he just doesn't wear down.
So before I let you go, give me your top 3 NFL MVP candidates in order from most likely, somewhat likely, and least likely. And then I'll give mine.
Okay. My most likely NFL MVP, just based on recent past and the hype around him and the expectations of this player. And I'm not big on this, of giving a player who's only been good for a couple of years such big expectations, but Patrick Mahomes, I would say, just based on what he's done. And he had MVP numbers last season too, but Aaron Rodgers just had better numbers. So I'm going to go with most likely Patrick Mahomes, somewhat likely. I'll give it to Derrick Henry as a running back, or maybe Aaron Donald as a defensive player, which would be hard, but and least likely. Does the least likely have to be like a position player or like a quarterback or what?
It can be any.
Least likely, in my opinion, who's usually in the MVP race, okay? I'll probably go with Lamar or Josh Allen. I think they're going to have setback seasons a little bit.
Yeah, so my top 3 is Matthew Stafford. I think he definitely can most likely win it this year. Patrick Mahomes definitely would be second on my list because that great offensive line that he's going to be playing with. On top of that, he has a really good defense. You got Andy Reid. You still got the same offensive coordinator. The third one's probably a little bit tough, but I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray had a really good year. As a matter of fact, he was in the MVP race for the middle of the season until he kind of fell off. He had injury concerns. He had a couple of so-so performances. But I definitely believe that if he can, play the same way for the entire year that he played the first half of 2020, I could see him winning it.
Yeah, I talked about that in the video that I'm rendering now. I said it was like I was talking about Cliff Kingsbury, but I was like, given the fact that Kyler Murray can put up MVP-like numbers and he's freaking just fast and shifty and he's got a cannon, I was like, I expect him to get even better next season. So really, Cliff Kingsbury doesn't have an excuse not to win. I think that's a good pick there.
So everybody, this is my guy, NFL broadcaster. Thank you for coming on, man. Can you tell everybody where they can find you at one more time before we let you go?
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Guys, I'm on YouTube. You can just search NFL broadcaster. It's all one word. You'll find my channel. The same goes for Twitter and Instagram. It's all one word, NFL broadcaster. And got a pretty good following on the Instagram, and I'm partnered with NFL Rumors on Instagram and Twitter. So.
All right, NFL broadcaster, I appreciate you for coming on, man, and take care.
You too.